like a Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where once again it's time for another Sega Saturn review, and today's game is a game that's held in very high regard in the Sega community. Of course, I'm talking about the one and only Dragon Force. It originally saw release in Japan of March of 1996, followed by a November 96 release in America, but didn't get released over here in the PAL region until August of 1997. And then it was followed up by a PlayStation 2 release in Japan in 2005 in the Sega Ages line.
Sky bright and pure, and lush rolling hills that spread from ocean to sparkling ocean.
So the storyline for Dragon Force takes place 300 years after the Star Dragon Hasgalt has sealed the evil Madrak away, but now as that seal begins to break, it's time for the 8 members of the Dragon Force to seek each other out, unite together, and put a stop to Madrak once and for all, denying him of his reign of terror over the land of Legendra.
That one from time uncounted was called Madrak. He and his villainous legion scorched the land.
So once the main menu hits and you choose to start a new game, you'll be greeted by a map where it tells you to select your country. And you've got a choice of 8 countries, 6 are available to start with the other 2 being unlocked after you complete the game for the first time. And this acts as the character selection screen. And you've got a choice of King Wine of the Highland Kingdom, Queen Tiris of the Pale Moon Kingdom, Emperor Junon of the Tristan Empire, King Leon of the Kingdom of Topaz, King Reinhardt of the Kingdom of Tradnor, Lord Gongus of the Bozak Nation, Emperor Mikkel of the Azumu Nation, and Emperor Goldark of the Empire of Fandaria. It's worth pointing out that the story does slightly differ at the start of the game depending on which character you pick. Wine, for example, is discussing with his council the impending invasion of Goldark's forces. They decide what they're going to do about that, but during the night, Wine is visited by the goddess Astia, who tells him actually that evil god Madrak is the greater threat and he must unite all 8 members of the Dragon Force before facing Madrak and defeating him once and for all. So with the story set up out of the way, we need to do what we always do, and that's talk about how Dragon Force looks, how it sounds, how it plays, content and lifespan, whether it's still worth playing today, and whether it makes our Sega Saturn top 10, or potentially do one better and get somewhere close to Shining Force 3 in that number 1 spot. So like always, we're going to start with visuals first, and I don't think many people are going to deny that Dragon Force is a fantastic looking 2D game, because I really think it is. We've got wonderful hand-drawn sprites here, no pre-rendered or digitized stuff, and the game benefits massively for it. We have potentially over 200 sprites doing war all at the same time on this game, with wonderful scaling effects, no slowdown, no flicker, screen filling special moves, transparencies, fire effects. It really is a showcase for the Saturn's 2D capabilities, and I genuinely don't think that the PlayStation or the Nintendo 64 could have pulled this game off anywhere near as well as the Saturn does. It really is a testament to its ability. Now, we've got fantastic menu presentation as well, wonderful text choice, great use of color. It really is an appealing game visually through and through. I guess the only downside would be the fact the world map isn't particularly impressive. It's quite basic, and it does chug a little bit when you're going from one side of the screen to the other. But other than that, the game is a fantastic showcase for the Saturn's 2D capabilities. So moving on to sound effects and music next, and thankfully Dragon Force is a fantastic sounding game as well. The sound effects within battle, very good stuff. Whether it's the cheering, whether it's the sounds of all the special moves, this game sounds very, very good. And to go with that, we've got fantastic musical tracks as well. And I feel during this era of games, the musical creativity from the composers was just overflowing. When we moved from 16-bit to 32-bit, So many games during this era had fantastic sound effects and musical quality, and Dragon Force is no exception because we've got some fantastic tunes on offer here. Whether we're talking about the individual themes for each of the members of the Dragon Force or all of the tunes that you will hear within the battles, it is top quality stuff here. Now, speaking of the battles, you will have hundreds of battles throughout a playthrough of this game, so you will hear those battle themes a lot. So a lot of people may be thinking, well, surely they're going to get repetitive. Well, they do a little bit, but thankfully it's balanced out by the fact they're all good tunes. In fact, for me, the only slight niggle in terms of the sound effects or music within this game is the fact that there's not any voice acting anywhere at all in the game. I do feel some of the more important cutscenes within the game could have benefited from some voice acting, but of course that's just my opinion. So what I'll do is what I always do, give you some examples of the music so you can decide for yourselves how good you think the tracks are within Dragon Force. So moving on to the gameplay next, and it's broken up into 3 distinct clear areas. We've got the map section where you move across the world map and you give directions to your generals, telling them where you want them to attack, or if you want them to move between fortifications that you own. You can recruit more troops. You can change the troop class that a general is controlling if they've got access to more than one. You can check who is captive for each general as well in your unit. It's quite off-putting to start with. It looks overly complicated and quite daunting, but if you give it an hour or so, you will quickly get to grips with the way it works, and it actually flows very, very well. So next up, we've got the domestic menu, which takes place once a week in game time, and this lets you change and look at a variety of things to do with the administrative side of your army. You can check your rewards, your items, your audiences, your generals, search and fortify. Heading into awards, this is where you can basically level up your general's capability in terms of commanding more troops by giving them merit points that they've earned during battle. Items is self-explanatory. It lets you equip items that you found. It also lets you use consumable items, which can raise the statistics of generals, heal ones who are injured, or increase the different style of troops that a general can control. Audience lets you speak with all your generals that are currently under your command, and this will help you find out if any of them are unhappy with you as well. You can also speak to your captive ones, who you can try and convert to join your force as well. Into the generals menu, it lets you look at all of your generals' individual statistics, moves that they can pull off, and troops that they can control. Probably the most important thing though here is the search function, because this will let you send out generals to search for items, which is crucial if you want to find items that you can equip to increase your attack or defense of your generals. You can find consumable items, which obviously can increase your general statistics, or improve the number of troops that they can control. This is particularly useful for people who can only control archers because they're by far the weakest troop choice in the game, so these generals can benefit massively from having different troops that they can control. You can also go on fortify as well, which lets you potentially increase the ability of your castles in terms of the number of troops that they can house, which means you can replenish your troops more readily in battle. And finally, we have the battles, which is of course the meat and bones of the gameplay. And this is where you need to put in the most thought, because if you charge willy-nilly into battles thinking, I've got lots of troops, I can take on anybody, you will find yourself getting butchered time and time again. You really need to learn the troop choices that there are on offer, which ones they are effective against, and also think about the tactics that you're going to employ in the battles. Because if you go into battle with 100 troops thinking, oh well, they've only got 20 on the opposing side, I will crush them regardless of what troop choice they are, you will find yourself getting absolutely crushed, and you'll be scratching your head thinking, why on earth did this happen to me? But of course it works the other way around as well. If you get your tactics right with the troop choice correct, you can go into battle with a small unit and you can absolutely crush units much larger than you. And this is one of the most rewarding feelings in the game, and it's a very, very addictive game. In fact, it's probably the most addictive game on the console. When you combine the battling with the map conquering element and the domestic duties as well, this game becomes compulsive and it drives you on to play it more and more. The incredible desire to defeat more armies, recruit more generals, take over more castles and expand your force is undeniable. It really, really is, and it's a testament to the way it plays. Although it's just a menu-driven style of gameplay, regardless of which element we're talking about, it works so well. It really does. I can't fault the gameplay really, because it just blends it all together so well for an addictive style map-conquering game with some RPG elements. It really is unrivaled. It is absolutely gripping to play from start to finish. Now, there are perhaps a couple of niggles with the gameplay, and they really are only niggles. The first one being sometimes if you decide to go gung-ho and just go all-out melee with your troops in battle, sometimes it can get stuck and there'll be a few enemy troops out of reach and the timer will just go and it'll end up a draw, and you'll be frustrated because you'll have 50 troops and they just couldn't get the last few of the opponents. That's frustrating. The only other one can be that sometimes when you get down to a duel, you're thinking that your general is easily going to take care of the opponent because you're a much higher level, you've got more health, and you're a similar troop type. But then when the battle starts, the opponent hits a 5-hit combo and wipes you out in one go, and you're left scratching your head thinking, how on earth did I do that? But you learn from this and you don't put your generals in any kind of jeopardy where you think they may potentially lose. This is just part and parcel of the game, getting to grips with it. And a lot of people will be put off actually by the way it plays in terms of the combat and in terms of the menu-driven mechanics, but you give this game a couple of hours and you will be rewarded with amazingly satisfying gameplay. For me, Dragon Force is a sensational playing game. So moving on to content and lifespan next, and Dragon Force by no means is a small game. It's a big, lengthy game that will take a considerable amount of time to play through just once. Now, when you take into account there are 8 main protagonists, 6 to start with, 2 more, Goldark and Reinhardt, being available once you've completed the game for a first time, you have got a massive amount of content here. You're going to have to play through the game 8 times if you want to see all of the story that this game has to offer, which is absolutely incredible. And the one thing that this game does that many RPGs don't is give you that drive to play through the game again once you've completed it. Something a normal RPG doesn't have really, because once you've seen that story, you don't want to then witness the same story all over again. Dragon Force is different because once you start with the main protagonist who's different from your last playthrough, the game is different. there is different story elements to it, which means there is this compulsive nature for you to want to see it because the game is so addictive. So in terms of content and lifespan, Dragon Force is absolutely amazing because it combines that wonderfully addictive gameplay with so much content that it really is unrivaled, in my opinion, on the Saturn. So of course that leaves us with our two final questions. Is Dragon Force still worth playing today, and does it, or perhaps more importantly, where does it feature in our PAL and worldwide Saturn top 10s? Now there's no doubt about it, you'll have guessed from my review so far that I'm going to tell you Dragon Force is well worth playing. It is an incredible game in every single way. It ties together looking good with sounding good, with addictive gameplay, a great storyline once you get into the game, and great replay value. It's rare that a game has all of these qualities in one complete package. It really is a fantastic experience. Now, when I was about 2/3 of the way through the game, I'd already had it in my head what position this game was going to come in my PAL top 10. But around about 2/3 of the way into the game, when all of a sudden more storyline comes into play and more surprises greet you in the story, it rose my opinion of this game by another bar. It took it to another level, and it just completely caught me by surprise because I'd never played this game before, never watched a serious review of it ever. So to have that experience was an incredible thing, and it really had to get me thinking about where it was actually going to come in the PAL and worldwide Saturn top 10s. And the fact that it's such an amazing game anyway, so addictive, but then combining it with a great story as well, means that Dragon Force comes into my PAL and my worldwide Sega Saturn lists in the same position in both, which means it's coming in at number 1 on both the PAL and the worldwide Sega Saturn top 10s. Now that is no easy feat because I didn't think those Shining Force 3 games were going to get knocked off the top spot perhaps ever, but Dragon Force has done the impossible. As far as I'm concerned, this is the best game that I have played on the Saturn so far. I think we're 93 games into the series now, and we finally have a new game at the top spot, and it is the amazing Dragon Force. Now, of course, as always, these are just my thoughts on the game and mine alone, and I'm always interested in hearing what other people have to say about this game. I don't know a single other person in person who has ever played Dragon Force, only other people who I've seen talk about it online. So I'm always interested in hearing other people's opinions on the game. So let me know your thoughts on Dragon Force down below. And as always, I'll be back in the near future with another review. Goodbye for now.